What's going on, guys? Sorry for the very late review here, but so many movies come out at the end of the year that it gets tough to see all of them. But my wife and I just saw Hidden Figures, and I think you were pretty excited to see this movie.
I was really excited. I was so happy to see a movie come out about Katherine G. Johnson because I did a report on her in high school. And I was
Nice.
like, yes.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest, I didn't really know that much about her or the other characters in this movie, so it was kind of cool to learn some stuff about them.
Yeah, it was a little more condensed, obviously. They condensed some different time pieces together into one movie, but it's really accurate for the most part. I loved every minute of it, though. I enjoy historical science movies because that's what I was really into growing up. I loved science and history and math. That was my field house, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had an interest in space and astronomy, so space movies, no matter what the subject, have always interested me, whether it's science fiction or it's, retelling true events. And if you don't know, essentially what this movie is about is mainly three women who work at NASA and who are dealing with quite a bit of racial prejudice due to their skin color, which is something that was extremely common at the time. But they have the rare circumstance of being in this incredible field and they're really pioneers in what they're trying to do. But at the same time, they're dealing with a ton of people who aren't allowing them to do what they need to do because they don't have access to certain files or certain areas. Or one of the characters in particular has to run very far to use the restroom because they have specific restrooms for them. And so it makes everything difficult. And it's really about how these characters navigate NASA while also creating different math formulas and things that just didn't exist at the time to help people get into space.
Catherine was basically creating an entire new field of science with her group for aerospace engineering. It's not something that had been really done at that point. So they were trying to create a new formula, but they realized they didn't really need to create a new formula. They needed to use an old formula to balance out the new stuff that they were doing, which makes a lot of sense because math is always math. You can't really change numbers.
Right.
So I appreciate that because I love science and math. And I was watching all the formulas on the board go by, and I'm like, I recognize all those. I did those in college.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm dumb. I don't know what those mean.
I appreciated it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yay, math. And I was following along. I'm like, oh, so much math. I'm so happy right now.
The performances in this movie across the board are all fantastic. Octavia Spencer is amazing. Taraji P. Henson's very good. Janelle Monae. Kevin Costner shows up, who I completely forgot was in this movie because I saw the trailer once. And I was like, oh, okay, Kevin Costner. Your boy Jim Parsons is in the movie from Big Bang Theory. I know he's excited to see him. He's kind of a dick in the movie, though.
He is a bit of a dick.
Yeah, he wasn't the greatest character. It was cool. That was another thing I liked about this movie because it doesn't necessarily beat you over the head with the the one-up scenes where someone's like, I got you good, you stupid person. Like, it has a few scenes like that where you really want to see some characters get what's coming to them, but it doesn't get too overly sentimental. It doesn't get too, unrealistic. It's a feel-good movie.
No, yeah, it definitely is a feel-good movie. It's one of those movies where it's like, it's just somebody trying to accomplish their goals, and they're ignoring everything else around them and just utilizing the brains that they have in a room to accomplish their goals, which is putting somebody into space.
Kevin Costner at one point says everybody at NASA pees the same color.
Right.
It's cool to watch people who have a specific mindset of how they view everyone have to work around that racial prejudice to get the job done.
You start to see the people clearly who are prejudiced and who are not really prejudiced, and those who just don't care because they don't even notice that somebody's of a different color than them. They just don't care. They're not focused on that.
There's a great scene in the movie that I don't want to spoil because it's really good. It's one of the best scenes in the movie where a character kind of has finally had enough. And she's just like, look, this needs to stop.
Yeah, it really was a good scene. I loved this movie. It was so good. The acting was well done. The directing was well done. All the shots were nice. Everything was smooth. It flowed really well.
I think we both like the title, too, because it's Hidden Figures, about the math and what's hidden, that needs one person to find that so they can get the problem solved. But it's also these three important figures of women who are kind of back behind the limelight, who are now getting pushed forth to the forefront.
Right, because these are not characters really anybody would know about in history unless you went looking. The only reason I really found out about her is because of this project. And I was trying to find a female scientist to use for this project because it was just about pick a scientist. Didn't specify what parameters for a scientist. It just had to be a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
Out of my entire class of 30, there were 2 of us who actually did a female scientist.
Wow.
And that's staggering when you really think about it because there are so many female scientists and they just don't ever get any attention whatsoever.
Everyone always talks about the guy who went into space instead, which is obviously important, but that's where the focus is. It's cool to see the behind the scenes of all that and not just, the men who are nice, pale-faced white guys like me, but, the other people who are there too, who are like doing things that are extremely important that are history changing.
How often do you hear about a female scientist in any platform ever?
It's not something that's usually focused on, especially in movies.
No.
It's rare.
You just never hear about female figures in science ever. So it's nice to have a change of pace where it's literally a movie focusing on a female scientist. Doesn't matter their race, doesn't matter their gender, just let somebody be brilliant if they're brilliant.
Right, you got the facts, she's got the brain power, just let her go to work, who cares?
I also enjoy the fact that this is like a wholesome family movie that you can take kids to, and you wouldn't think you'd be able to bring kids to this, but it's very family friendly, very appropriate for little kids to be seeing something like this. Like, get your little girls interested in sciences.
Yes, or young boys.
Or young boys, whatever.
You know what I really like about the fact that it's a family movie? Most critics really enjoyed this film, but some of the detractors are saying that it's a little too watered down, that it's it's not quite as serious as it should be, that it sort of glosses over some more serious issues. I heartily disagree, and here's why. Every movie that deals with racial strife does not have to be rated R. It's extremely important for young people to see movies like this. I was actually really happy this movie didn't just throw in the obligatory F-bomb to get the PG-13.
Right.
Because a lot of movies do that because they're afraid that if it's PG, it won't do well at the box office because people think it's too kiddie or family-friendly. But this movie is really performing well at the box office. It's already outgrossed its budget. And it's important for young people, like not teenagers, like for 8, 9, 10-year-olds to see movies like this. And they can't if it's rated R. So I like the fact that this movie is more aimed at families. And I don't necessarily think it waters down the subjects. Yeah, it makes it a little theatrical sometimes. And a little bit like, stick it to the man kind of deal. But that's fine. Like, kids should grow up seeing stuff like this. It's well acted, it has a good message, and it's rare to see characters like this in a movie that are based on real life.
It's one of those things where you're sitting there and watching it, and you're just smiling and laughing the whole time, or you're very into it, and you're like, oh, what's going to happen next? Even though we know what's going to happen next because we've studied history in school. But it's one of those things where it's like, you feel connected to these people and you feel their struggle and you want to punch somebody.
Yeah,
like
there are a few characters.
Right. It's like you spend the first 20 minutes of the film like, I really want to hit this person for being so nasty or having this look on their face right now. And it's like you start to come to care about these characters so much. And it's nice. It's a change of pace. We always get such self-serious movies that have to have a political agenda. And this is just all about not being into the world, into the stuff. And it's all about just the event, the moment, getting John Glenn into space and orbiting. And
getting the job done.
Right, getting the job done.
No matter what. As for issues with Hidden Figures, it's hard to pinpoint one because it's a feel-good movie. It's enjoyable. It's not like you watch this movie and go, that was bad. Like, that part was bad. But I guess for me, I didn't really feel like the romance was all that well fleshed out. In fact, it was sort of just a subplot that was there to kind of make you feel a little good and show what's going on in her life at that time. But I'd never really felt all that attached. It was sweet, when he comes around and Mahershala Ali, who's a fantastic actor, when he comes around and he's very charming, he's a good-looking guy. It's sweet, but I didn't really feel like it added that much to the story. But the film kind of quickly goes back to NASA whenever it gets a little into that. And for me, I was like, okay, let's see what's going on behind the scenes of NASA. And it doesn't focus too much on it. That's really my only thing about the film I can pinpoint.
Yeah, I wish I'd seen more of her kids and more of her husband and things like that. Because especially since they're still alive and they're still married at 56-something years now that they have been together.
That's amazing.
And it's just kind of like so quickly through the film that it doesn't pay as much attention as it should to her kids, her mother, and her husband. I just maybe like 5 more minutes in the movie of just some more integral scenes with her family, unless like every time you see her kids, you're at a party.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like they were like, we have to have these in the movie because it's part of her life, but they wanted to just get back to the more dramatic stuff at NASA. So they kind of showed it like, this happened. let's make this good. Let's act well in these scenes, but let's hurry up and get back to NASA.
Right.
So I think that was really my only issue with the entire film.
That was probably my only complaint too, is that there's just maybe not enough of her kids and her husband, which I guess isn't too big of a problem, but it's still one of those things where it's like, just a little bit more would have been good.
Yeah.
5 more minutes. That's all really would have needed.
So overall, we both really enjoyed Hidden Figures. I think we're both recommending it pretty heartily. It's a feel-good movie. It's a good message. Take your kids to it if you're older and you have kids. I think it's something that they could enjoy and also learn a bit of a lesson from. I'm going to give Hidden Figures an A-.
I'm going to give Hidden Figures an A. Just a straight up A.
I was like, oh, okay.
Nope, just a straight up A.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. But I probably felt more connection for the character than Chris did because I've done a paper on her and did research on her.
No, I mean, I thought she was great in the movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, and definitely check it out. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Thank you to my beautiful wife, Sam, for joining me in this video.
I always enjoy joining you.
And on that note, as always, if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.